Hey, what's up guys? Kevin here from KevsPicks.com, and in this video, I'm going to go over my DraftKings and FanDuel NFL Week 14 picks. So first off, if you aren't signed up for my email list, make sure you get on that. I had a lot of good picks sent out last week. I'll be sending out this week's email Sunday morning like usual. So to get signed up for that, just click on that DFS emails link in the YouTube description below. That'll get you signed up for free. And as you can see here, I've got my Fantasy Labs model pulled up. This is the Sports Geek model. It's one of the pro models that you get when you have an account at Fantasy Labs. So if you don't have an account yet, I highly recommend you sign up for Fantasy Labs. They got the best DFS tools out there in my opinion. And I'll leave my link to Fantasy Labs in the YouTube description as well. And then lastly, I'm going to be talking about DraftKings mostly, but I like these players on FanDuel as well. All right, so starting off at quarterback, I'm going to go with Jimmy Garoppolo from the 49ers, making a second start for San Fran. He's 5,500 this week on DraftKings in Houston against the Texans defense that has been struggling this year. They're 29th in points against per game. You can see here the over-under is at 45, so not too bad, about average there at 45. The 49ers are 2.5 point underdogs, so their implied team total is 21.3. I would bet the over on that personally. I think Garoppolo could have a big game. I think the 49ers could put up some points here in Houston. I'd probably bet the over on the total. I expect this to be a little bit higher scoring than the 45 points. But either way, regardless, if they do score 3 touchdowns, if Garoppolo were to throw 3 touchdowns, maybe 300 yards, that'd be plenty for that $5,500 salary. I think he's got a good chance of having a pretty good day and possibly a big breakout game here. If we look at his game log, his one start against Chicago last week, didn't throw any touchdowns. I think they kicked like 5 field goals in that game. But he was 26 of 37 throws, 70.3%, 293 yards. Looked really good. And one of his receivers is pretty cheap, and I like him this week as well. I'll talk about that when we get to receivers. So I just like the stack in general for the price. Garoppolo 5,500. That's my top QB of the week. Moving on to running back here, I got Alfred Morris at 5,500 as well. Just like the price on this against the Giants. The Giants haven't been great defensively all year. They're playing a little better right now, but against the rush, they're 24th in yards against per rushing attempt on the season. Dallas likes to run the ball when they can. And you can see here they're 3.5 point favorites on the road in New York. Alfred Morris has looked pretty good this year in his limited time as the #1 running back. You can see here 11 carries for 53 yards, 17 carries, just 9 carries against the Chargers, but 27 carries in his last time out against the Redskins for 127 yards and a touchdown. And if you look at his averages here, 4.7, 4 yards, 5.4, 4.8 yards per carry. So doing pretty well as the #1 running back. And I would expect him to get quite a few carries against the Giants. And for that price, just really like him as both a cash and GPP play. Just like him all around at that pretty cheap price against the Giants. On to receiver here, and I've got 2 receivers. We'll start off with Marquise Goodwin, who's going to be stacked with Garoppolo for me. 5,100, really good price for him. Again, I've been playing him pretty much every single week, and he's been doing well pretty much every single week. You can see here, for his price at least, he was down around the 4,000 mark for most of the year. A game with 19 points here, 12 points, 17 points. 11 points, and then 17.9 against the Bears last week. He caught 8 of 8 passes for 99 yards. No touchdowns, but a pretty nice DraftKings score of 17.9 at $4,000. This week he's up to 5,100, but that doesn't really scare me off. He's clearly the #1 target there in San Fran, and he's got a better quarterback throwing him the ball, and he's a quick receiver. Like him for GPPs, would play him in cash if I was playing Garoppolo as well. And then my second receiver here, Stefon Diggs. I'm going back with Diggs. He had a brutal game last week. Just didn't get many looks. Had him in my video last week, but I'm going to go back to him just based on his price dropping to 5,800. Not a bad matchup here against Carolina. And I'm hoping ownership is down a little bit with a couple off games here. So I really like Diggs all around, and I usually play him almost every week just because I think he can have those big games. You can see here 40 DraftKings points against the Bucs. I think he can break out at pretty much any time once he gets some targets. You can see here last week, just 5 targets, 2 catches, 32 yards. Didn't do much, but I would expect him to do a little more this week. And at 5,800, I think that's a steal and potentially a game where he could go off for a big game. So Diggs and Goodwin are my top 2 wide receivers this week. And on to tight end here. I'm going to go with Austin Seferian-Jenkins, 3,600 going against Denver. The Broncos are not as good defensively this year against the pass as they were in the last couple of years, especially last year. They're 18th in passing yards against per attempt, and they're 29th in fantasy points against to tight end. So I think this is a good spot for Safarian Jenkins. He's a good price, 3,600. Look at his projected ownership here, just 2 to 4%. So he could make for a good GPP play. And if you look at his game log here, he has had some games where he's put up some points, 14, 17, 12. So no really high scoring games, DraftKings scoring games besides this. I guess 17.6 is pretty high. But for the price, 3,600, if he's getting you about 15 DraftKings points, you'd probably be pretty happy. And I could see that happening this week against the Broncos. On to defense here. I'm going to go with a cheap defense for the video. So I'm going to go with the Vikings at 2,700. They're ranking really well in the Sports Geek model. They're in a pretty good matchup against Carolina. Obviously not ideal going into Carolina, but that's why you're getting the discount on them. The Vikings are a good defense, so I'd like to play good defenses that are cheap unless they're playing an elite top scoring type offense. The Panthers aren't really that, in my opinion. You can see here the over-under is only at 40 points. The Panthers their implied team total is 18.8, so they're not expected to score too many points. And if we look at the Vikings defense, pretty good overall. Haven't done too much on DraftKings this year, but if you went back to last year, you could see they had quite a few high scoring games, DraftKings points wise. This year, just the one in double digit, 14, but you can see here they do force a lot of pressure. You can see all the sacks here. You can see some interceptions, some fumbles, just haven't scored the touchdowns this year. And I think that maybe could come this week against Cam Newton. Just 2,700, that's going to be my favorite cheap defense. There are more expensive defenses that I like that I will be playing. But for a cheap defense, if you need to go probably below the 3,000 range, Vikings are going to be my top choice there. So that wraps up my NFL Week 14 picks, but I will be emailing out more picks, so make sure you sign up for my email list. Just click on that DFS emails link in the YouTube description below to get signed up for that. Good luck this week, guys. Hopefully you make some money. Talk to you later.